Hello, dearest friends, dearest beautiful co-creator souls of love and light. This is Nanari, Princess of the Sea, coming to you with a new video. And in this video, I'm going to speak with you about the resonance of a movie that is very dear to my heart that came up just recently within a conversation with a woman who I mentor. And this movie is called The Lake House. Thus the title of this video, The Lake House being a vibrational match. Now, this wisdom that I'm going to share with you, I'm going to do it under the context of several archetypes, if you will. As many of you are aware, I am the Princess of the Sea. I am the Princess of the Sea for many resonances and reasons, and it in part has to do with being an archetype amongst the soul of who I am. Now, that said, you have heard in my videos and my writings and all that I am and give and be in this world, the Princess and Troubadour archetype. I have spoken about that in the context of who the Divine Feminine and the Divine Masculine are within those archetypes. And so I'm going to be speaking from that resonance of those archetypes of the Troubadour and Princess, the Divine Masculine and Divine Feminine, and also interrelating this to the Twinsoul Union, Twinsoul relationship. And this can also apply to all relationships. Spiritual partnership relationships, divine love relationships, even family relationships and other connections, friendships and whatnot. This wisdom can be applied across the board in some form or fashion. Now, as I have always said for many, many years and wrote about in my book, Stepping into Spiritual Oneness, that was published 9 years ago almost now, take with you what resonates and leave the rest. So always follow your heart. Whatever resonates within this wisdom or any of the wisdom that I share with you, I am sharing it as a context of what pours forth through me from Source, from the Master Artist. And whatever resonates with you in your heart and in your soul, take it within you and allow it to shift you into that vibration of source energy of love itself. And whatever is free from resonating with you is fine as well. That said, the movie The Lake House happens to be one of my favorite movies, and it has many multidimensional facets to it. And there are similar resonances also with Cloud Atlas in this that I'm going to be speaking about in being a vibrational match. Now, what is being a vibrational match? And how do you magnetize to each other? And what is it to be in the same consciousness, the same vibration? Now, when it comes in the twin soul dynamic or resonance union relationship, and again, this can apply to all resonances of other relationships, unions, because what this is twin souls come together as the forerunners, the way showers, if you will, for the template, the model, the resonance, the consciousness of what true divine love is and what true divine union and relationships, spiritual partnerships are really all about. Taking us to the next vibrational resonance, the next vibrational level, if you will, the heart coherence, the vibrational match, the magnetizing of the evolution of love. And so this is why twin souls come together at this time during our consciousness evolution of this new earth that we're creating, this new consciousness, this new vibration. And it's really free from being a new vibration per se. It's new to us in human form. It's really new old, so to speak. It's ancient wisdom. It's the wisdom of who we really are as this source energy, as this love. And there seems to be a resonance issue for twin souls in particular of where there are a lot of twin souls that are struggling right now. And this is the main reason I'm doing this video, is to help and assist with that as well. For you to understand about being this vibrational match and utilizing the lake house as a means for this, to help those twin souls who are meant to be together in this life, who are in their last lives here on this earth, to help them to shift into being a vibrational match. Twin souls, or any spiritual partnership, any relationship, you are to be in the same consciousness, same vibration, same frequency to be in union physically. And what is occurring right now with certain twin souls, that there's this struggle, this angst that's going on within the melding of the mental and emotional bodies in particular, that I speak about in my other videos on the Twinsoul Union. Usually what has been occurring is there has been one of the two twin souls in physical form that has expanded in their light so much that they are free from being in the same frequency, the same vibrational resonance that the other is in. And so from an earthly standpoint, we call that higher or lower frequencies. Again, as I said in my last video, it is free from being higher or lower per se, because in spirit and soul, there is none. There's just different various vibrational frequencies. So what tends to happen though is that we switch our frequency to that of our twin souls. The one who is feeling the angst changes their frequency in an attempt to be in the same vibrational resonance of union with the one twin soul who is free from being in a harmonic resonance. And then what tends to happen is there's this, in the melding of the emotional body and the mental body, there's this push-pull, there's this sense of anger and angst and hurt and pain and all of these things that suffering, comes about within this. And I went through this myself as well in the journey, because what I attempted to do was shift into the vibrational resonance of where my twin soul was. And every time I did that, it caused me pain. It caused me pain on a physical level. It caused me pain on a vibrational level. It caused me pain and suffering in my life and whatnot, because he was in a completely different vibration. Now, it's free from meaning that his vibration was wrong or mine was right. It's free from being about righteousness. This is just that he was in another vibration and I was attempting to match that vibration, and my light was so expanded that I was unable to do that. So instead of magnetizing to each other like magnets do when they pull together, when they're the opposite polarity in such extremes, what do? They actually repel each other. And so this is where this, people often call it, and I've also called it, the runner-chaser dynamic. This is kind of where the runner-chaser dynamic comes from in that resonance. It's basically the magnets actually repelling each other. So you're actually repelling each other because you're on two vibrational frequencies that you're unable to hear each other completely. So this comes into the movie, The Lake House. And I'm going to kind of just read what the conversation was, and then I'll expand upon it. This conversation that I had with the woman that I mentor. She had come to me and she says, I'm watching The Lake House right now, and they are living 2 years apart. They are on different dimensions. Is that why? And I responded to her and I says, oh, I do love that, so love that movie. And yes, it's one of my favorites. And the answer to that question is yes. See, they were in two different dimensions. If any one of you have seen the movie, if you've been free from seeing the movie, I will be free from giving away any spoilers, so to speak. If you hear this, I would invite you to watch the movie The Lake House. It is definitely a beautiful movie of the twin soul essence, or spiritual divine partnership essence, the union of love. And what happens in the movie is exactly this. They are on different dimensions. And without giving too much away, she later then said, okay, because they are both living in the same house and have the same dog, but they can't see each other. And the underlying basis of this is basically he is 2 years in the past, so to speak. She is 2 years in the future. Now, the thing is that, and this is what the movie brings out very clearly, is there is free from being any such thing as time. There is no past, there is no future. And quantum physics is now proving scientifically what we as mystics and seers have known for since the time before time, is that there really is no time. And this goes into what I speak about in my book, Stepping into Spiritual Oneness, and the fact that time is an illusion. This is what it means. It means that we have created as a human consciousness this concept of time to somehow attempt to put into some sort of context that our human psyche, our human consciousness could actually relate to, because the vastness of the cosmos is so incredibly vast that to try to understand it is just, well, mind-boggling. And so to try to put some context to it so that we have some sort of understanding, we created this illusion called time. So, in that context, we have this thing called past and future, when actually all of our lives are being lived right here, right now, at once. And so, the lake house is a beautiful way of showing this. In essence, they're showing the physical humanness of basically she's 2 years ahead of him, so to speak, and he is, 2 years back in time, and they meet because they are actually able to hear one another in one context, but they're not physically able to see each other. And the reason that they're not able to physically see each other, it's kind of like if you are talking to a wall. You're in the next room, and basically you're able to talk to that person through the wall, but you can't exactly hear everything they're saying, and you can't exactly be with them physically because there's this earthly thing called a wall sitting in front of you, right? And it isn't until you actually go out the door from that room and go into the next room where that person is, in other words, shifting dimensions, shifting vibrational frequency, that you are then a vibrational match and can come together. And without giving anything away, this is what occurs in the process of this movie. So I explained to her this when she said, they're both living in the same house and have the same dog, but they can't see each other. So my response to her was, exactly. This is what being in another dimension is like. It is like what recently happened with my twin soul. I'm in another dimension totally. And this is why we've been free, and why twin souls themselves are free from coming together oftentimes, because we're in two different vibrations, we're in two different dimensions. And that's why these issues come up, because again, it's like being in those two separate rooms. You're trying to talk to each other, and you can hear each other somewhat, but not completely, because you're not in that same vibration. When two people are in two different vibrations, dimensions, they are unable to see one another until they both come into the same vibrational match, same resonance, same dimension. So then she asked me, is this what is happening with her and her twin soul? Because he's in another dimension right now in spirit. And I told her exactly. And so then she had asked, so in another resonance, are they living together a life with him in spirit, but they can't see each other? And so I explained to her, yes, that's exactly why. And this is why she's been doing the spiritual work, to be able to see him spiritually until he manifests himself fully as a walk-in into physical form. So as I explained to her, it's about being in that other resonance, or being in that other dimension. So she then asked, so in this movie, the lake house, is one of them in spirit, and that's why they don't physically meet. And without giving too much away of spoilers, in a sense, yes, and in a sense, no. And this is what I explained to her. In the movie, if you notice, it is alluded to that he, being Keanu Reeves, could have been in spirit, but she stopped him. Okay, she actually stopped him in the movie from being killed that Valentine's Day, I believe it was. So in answer, no, they were both just in two different dimensions, but they also show the multidimensional aspect of he could have died that day. And because of the letter that she sent to him from the future, so to speak, back into the past, or basically from one dimension to another, she passed, like we passed notes in class. Do you remember back in the day when we passed notes back and forth to each other in class? So she was able to send a message to him from one dimension to another that was able to reach him. He was actually able to hear her, and it prevented him from actually dying. But in a parallel universe, in a parallel dimension, he actually did die, and they show that in the movie very beautifully. And so I was explaining that to her. So then she had said, but to be in a different dimension, you would have died, right? And then I said no to her. It's not at all like that. In that different dimension, yes, he did die, but it's like being on a different vibrational frequency. And I gave it to her in the context, and I have said this in various ways through my writings and also on my other YouTube videos, that it's very similar to that of being on a radio dial. For instance, as I was explaining to her, you could be tuned into 100.7 and your twin soul is tuned into the vibration on the radio dial of 107.5. So you're broadcasting two different stations, but neither one of you is hearing what's on each other's station. Or like when the stations get intermixed and you're trying to find it and you get a little static and you can kind of hear both stations at once, but you can't really fully hear it. That's kind of what's happening, where you can hear each other but not completely. So in that resonance with the lake house, it is quite beautiful. And there was a gentleman who came to me that was the inspiration for my recent video that I just did yesterday. And when I posted it, this gentleman that I talk about in there, he responded and he thanked me very much for actually creating the video. And he said how lovely it was that I went to so much trouble to create this video for him and for all. And so he had asked the question, re-verifying, is it that he and his twin soul are free from being in their last lives? And I will reiterate that I told him in writing back to him saying that, yes, in this life, he will be free from being with his twin soul because they are free from being in their last life together. And I explained to him, and so I will share this as well for those of you who are free from knowing. Part of my spiritual gifts here on this earth is that I see each soul as well as twin souls. And I see each soul's soul blueprint, soul signature name, what it means, the vibration of it, your soul song, your soul agreements, your patterns, all the lives you've lived, and where your soul path and progression is. And I see that straight through accessing through straight from source, and also the Akasha, or also known as the Akashic Records. And so when I give spiritual channeling mentoring or spiritual soul channeling readings, and my channelings and my writings and all of that comes through me is coming straight from source. And it's the wisdom that I'm accessing straight from source and through the Akasha. And so what he had said, and I thought was quite actually beautiful, was that he was wondering what to make of the visions that he was receiving about them being together in the quote unquote future of this life. And so he was saying that these visions had arisen when he was free from expecting anything, and he doesn't feel that they were the product of his mind or wishful thinking, but rather the messages born of the heart. And so I really wanted to address this because there tends to be a tendency for, and I'm going to place this into what the majority I've been experiencing my own self and what the majority of twin souls are experiencing that I have come in contact with and know of, is there tends to be a tendency for the divine feminine to awake to this energy first. Now, there is exceptions to this rule, as I do have quite a few also divine masculine who have awoken to these visions as well, just like this gentleman here. And what tends to happen is that if we come to our twin soul with this wisdom that we've opened up to multidimensionally, because they are, again, free from being on that same vibrational frequency or in that same dimension, like in the lake house, it's kind of like they can't hear you. So they may call you delusional or crazy, and they may go, outrageous. You got to be kidding. I'm not your twin soul. I don't even believe in twin souls, or what are you talking about, or all of these kind of things. And this can be very heartbreaking. I know, I've been through it myself. And what it is that it's free from meaning that you are crazy if you're receiving these visions. You're free from being crazy or delusional. It's that you reside and live and be in another dimension, in another vibration in which you're tuning into that. And they're just as real. And it's just that your twin soul isn't open in that resonance yet. It is free from being good, bad, right, or wrong. It's just what is. And this is what I was explaining in response to this gentleman. I said to him, I said, the visions that you have had about being together are correct because, yes, you will still come together from an earthly standpoint in what we call the future, even though all our lives are being lived right now at once, including this one, and everything is just simply in the now moment. There is, quote unquote, free from being any future. You're just shifting dimensions, shifting frequencies in the now moment. Every moment in the now moment. And so you will meet and come together. Staying together fully, though, from an earthly standpoint, no, not in this life, because you're free from being in your last life, as I was explaining to him. Some of those visions that you are experiencing are also visions from your other life or future life, as we would call it from an earthly standpoint, in which you are able to understand and know that again, they are free from being any future or past lives. We are just living them simultaneously. And then it is through this understanding that you will know that what it is that you're experiencing in your dreams and visions and dream time is simply shifting into that vibrational frequency. So it is free from being a product of your mind. You're free from making it up, and it's free from being wishful thinking. It is that you're opening up multidimensionally, so you're able to see these things and experience these things and know these things, and yet your twin soul may be free from opening up multidimensionally yet. And so this is where the disconnect, if you will, it comes from. And this is where often the angst comes from. And we often want to be with our twin soul so much because we are seeing these things happening in these other dimensions. And then they're also meant to happen in this dimension as well. And we're bringing it forth to this dimension that we are resonating in. Yet our twin soul is free from being in that same dimension. And so we are free from being a vibrational match. And so this is what causes a lot of the angst within us. And this is why there is this disconnect that occurs. And so I loved his response because his response was thanking me for that clarification. And then he also explained that of his memories of their lives together and how he helped to heal himself through that, utilizing their lives together. And he remembered the moment that certain things happened in those other lives and how he was able to send himself messages, so to speak. And he had said this was quite beautifully. He had said, certainly God does not need to run an experiment over billions of years and wait for linear time to have its way. Instead, God, in quotes, meaning source, runs the experiment simultaneously, and thus, if we understand this, can enter into the life wave of such timelines, can include much karma and clear many of the earlier misunderstandings. There have been times when I have felt the help from myself in the future, and that future life could and would reconfigure if certain major events held in the potential of the present earth came to be. So glad we're on the same page. So it was so beautiful that I was confirming for him what it is that he already knew in his heart. And so this is why I'm sharing the wisdom here with you to help you on your twin soul path and journey to understand that these could be the reasons for your angst and why this perpetual obsession, if you will, of this, which is really free from being an obsession on one hand, it can turn into that, which is what I shared of in my video, a couple videos about. But really, what it is it's that deep soul calling within you that knows these other lives and knows the potentialities, parallel dimensions, and you are resonating in this dimension of the aspects of who you really are as twin souls, and you very much desire to have your twin soul be in that same vibrational essence, that same dimension, that same resonance with you. And then you have your twin soul, on the other hand, who is sitting there and being in their dimension of where they are, and they're feeling the same thing. They're feeling, my God, oh, I just wish he or she, whichever the two of you it is, I just wish, they would come into my dimension and see what I see and understand what I understand and know what I know too. And things could be so great if this person would just jump into my dimension with me. And you're thinking the same thing and feeling the same thing and vibrating the same thing. And so you're both sitting there kind of like at a stalemate, unable to see each other fully and be with each other fully, just like in the lake house. And there was a moment of frustration for them at different parts in the movie where they expressed that because they were free from being in that same vibrational match or that same dimension, that same frequency. So, what do we do about all this? Part of this is, and the whole essence of all the videos that I've done on the twin soul journey, the sacred path, the sacred union, is about coming into union within you. Because that is what the twin soul union is all about. It's you, YOUNION, which is a video I did a couple of videos ago. So while you share the same soul, and as I said in my last video, Aristotle said twin souls or love or friendship is one soul within two bodies. This means that although you share the same soul, each of you is still whole, perfect, and complete as that soul in physical form. And so what that means is that you still have your own individual path and experiences here on this earth, in this life, and in many other lives. And so you have your own healing work to do within you so that you come into union, YOUNION, within you. And then the reflection of that, or the vibrational match of that within your twin soul, who is the other aspect of you in physical form, will then reflect that. There's both and. It's a both and universe that we live in rather than an either or. So it's inclusive rather than exclusive, inclusivity. And so within that, you have both your individual work as your own individual soul in physical form, and also the melding of the bodies, mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual, the spiritual already being melded completely anyhow, because your is one, that you are to do both individually and then also together as you meld together in a union. So it's both and. So the first resonance there, though, is what's happening within you. So when you are happy within yourself already, then you will be free from retorting and getting angry when your twin soul is free from being in that same vibration as you. You will be able to take that rejection and the blow ups and the fuck ups and the hell of fury and all of the, ups and downs and whatnot. You'll be able to take it and not blink because you know you're resonating in this vibration of union, of where you are in the dimension that you are in union. The only time, if you will, that you end up being in this state of a mismatch in vibration, and when you end up having this angst and pain and suffering that goes on along with moments of bliss and jubilation, is because the bliss and jubilation is when they are actually in a vibrational match with you. In those moments, just like in the lake house, when they actually are meeting, without giving anything away, there's a scene in the movie where he says to her, "Let me take a walk, let me take you for a walk." And he basically walks her around the city to the places that he knows. And there's one point in which there's a writing on the wall in which she recognizes that they're together, they're in union, even though technically, quote unquote, she's 2 years in the future, but they are in union. So they are having that brief moment where they are a vibrational match. And so this is what happens, and this is why there's moments where you will have a perfect union where you'll come together physically and everything's beautiful, and then all of a sudden you break apart. Why? Because you're no longer in that same vibrational match. And so when you are torn to pieces by those personal experiences, that's what has this quote unquote illusion of separation, if you will. When you can come to the place within you where you are free from being in torn to pieces in that experience of personal experiences that are going on, and regardless of circumstances and situations, that you are still in this resonance of peace and love, and of knowing that you are in this dimension and vibration of union, being that consistently, then that's usually what is enough to bring your twin soul into vibrational resonance with you. And the other twin will be able to then shift and heal whatever is within them as well, because you're being that place of resonance, of holding that vibration of love consistently. And this will then be what magnetizes you to one another and has you stay in union once you're magnetized. That's the key, is to stay in that vibrational frequency, that vibrational match, that dimension together. So, what does that mean to magnetize? Magnetizing means, again, being in one or both. And what ends up happening is either one stays in that same dimension, and then eventually the other comes into that dimension, which is exactly what happened in the lake house. Okay, towards the end of the movie, what ended up happening was she was in that dimension of 2 years in the quote unquote future, and she stayed there, and she kept calling to him and sending him messages through the mailbox, right? Of saying, this is where we are to meet, this is how we are to come into resonance, basically. And then finally, he was able to. He met her, and without giving the end away per se, they end up meeting in vibrational resonance, and this is why they end up being together. So this magnetization came about in the movie because she stayed in that vibration of where she was 2 years in the future, so to speak. He was able to change his vibrational frequency of certain things that he was doing and not doing, which then had him be able to meet her in that vibrational match of 2 years in the future, so to speak, which really wasn't the future in essence, because again, all lives are being lived right now at once. So if one is able to do that, then one can bring the other into that magnetic resonance, basically. Because if you look at magnets, you have one who's staying in that same vibration, and then you have that other magnet that's getting closer and closer. What ends up happening? Boom, they connect, right? And the vibration gets stronger and stronger, and then boom, they come right together. So if one or both are able to maintain that balance of being non-reactive, of being in that place of pure unconditional love and unconditional acceptance, what we call divine love, which is source love, throughout the changes of the emotional body and the mental body specifically, then that will bring the twin souls into that vibrational magnetism, staying in that resonance, staying in that heart coherence, this consciousness that will then be the sustaining for the physical union and will let go of any sabotaging egoic reactions, being the reflection of divine love and divine acceptance. Now, this is free from meaning that you are to be the same. Sameness is free from being what a vibrational match is. Sameness is free from being what harmonic resonance is, heart coherence is, and being a vibrational match is. What it means is simply that both of you are resonating in the vibration of love, the vibration of soul, the vibration of love source itself, the master artist itself. Now, what does that really mean in concrete terms? What this means is just like the strings of a guitar, the A string is free from being in the same vibrational tone as an E string. Yet there is a syncopation that occurs with the variety of these rhythms of these different strings that can appear in an unexpected way to make things offbeat, so to speak, in a piece or a tune. That said, they are still in harmonic resonance, heart coherence, and a vibrational match and magnetized to one another when each is playing their own soul song and each honors, accepts, loves, and blesses the other string for that song and vibration sung. So, in other words, if you look at the movie The Lake House, they were free from arguing about, well, you're in this dimension and you're 2 years ahead of me and I can't be with you. They had a brief moment of that, yes. But what really brought them together was the acceptance of, okay, she's here supposedly 2 years ahead. He is 2 years supposedly in the past. And in the acceptance of where they were at on the journey and in the acceptance of where they were resonating, even though they were physically in two different dimensions at that time, they were accepting of each other exactly where they were at, loving each other exactly where they were at, unconditionally. So, in other words, he was playing the A string, let's say, and she was playing the E string. And the acceptance of being the E string and the A string and the A string and the E string is what actually brought them together. Because from that resonance, they were able to say, okay, how can we be together in syncopation, accepting one another? This is how you bring one another into harmony, because harmony is actually being who you are, sharing who you are, and allowing others to be who they are and share who they are, and learning how to be and do this together. This is how you be a vibrational match. And this is how you come into full union in physical with your twin soul, or the divine partnership that calls to your heart, the one who calls to your heart. Now, I realize that this may seem easier said than done, but this is actually the step-by-step process and how it comes into being. Now, along with this is what the essence of true divine union is, and this is what I will close out this video with, which is this. I had a channeling come through me just recently after a woman who I mentor came to me, a different woman, who had asked me about this resonance of divine masculine coming into her life and why this was happening, and they were opening doors for her in ways that she had never thought possible. And I began channeling some of this in part of her mentoring session that I wrote to her, and the rest of it came flooding through afterwards, and this was the other night, a few nights ago. And since I have put this out on Facebook and through Google Plus and everything else, I've had an overwhelming response of amazingness. I've been told that this is the complete pure essence of what divine union really is. And so I'm going to actually read it to you, and you can actually just feel this within you, because when we are being this in these roles, and it's free from being roles in the sense of what we define roles to be from an earthly context. This is about a soul resonance. And when we are in this soul resonance, this vibrational frequency, this is what actually magnetizes us into union. And I was also told that this was the most beautiful thing that this woman had ever read, one of the responses, and how it speaks directly to her soul. And so is the reminder of her soul as well. And so I'm going to read this to you and just sit back and allow this to infill you. And if you're the divine masculine, I invite you to be this. The divine feminine, I invite you to be this. And as you be this, this will then be the magnetizing beauty that brings you in soul union with that who calls to your heart. Whoever that is, if it's your twin soul, a soulmate, a divine partnership, a spiritual union, whatever you choose to call this connection, it's a soul connection. And this is the essence of what it is. I entitled this channel The Seed of Life. The seed of life. The divine masculine comes into the life of the divine feminine to bless her, and often opens doors for her in ways she is unable to do on her own. This is free from meaning that she is weak and is unable to do it on her own. Nor does it mean for the man either of weakness. For we both, men and women, have in balance of oneness, both divine feminine and divine masculine within, and are capable of doing such on our own in co-creation and balance with the master artists of the universe. This is one vibrational means of creating, or rather transforming energy on this earth. As technically nothing is ever really created, this is an earthly word we use. Creation is really energy which is infinite, that is free from ever dying nor giving birth. It is simply energy, being transformed into another infinite essence, and we call this creation, giving birth, or giving birth to creation, and the like. And in some ways, this can be very successful. Yet it is free from being the only means of creation, co-creation, transforming energy. For while we can be successful on our own, whole, perfect, complete, and beautiful, simply as we are, in divine feminine and divine masculine balance, we can only go so far on our own. It is through the means of the dance of union in which magic truly occurs. The other means by which we create is within the dance of sacred union on the sacred path of life on this earth. Within experiencing the duality in oneness, the oneness in the duality. Our earthly ways of being are for the divine masculine to bless the divine feminine with their seed of life of the sun they are. And then in turn, as the divine feminine takes that seed and creates life with such. It is just like when the divine masculine gives the divine feminine the seed of life of his seed when the divine feminine becomes pregnant. And she then creates from that seed a new life. That is the one way within procreation which benefits all of bringing forth physical human form. Yet another way is through creative projects, art, music, and many other infinite ways of bringing forth this energy, which through co-creation rather than procreation, we then benefit all in another way. As the Divine Feminine, when she is fully in her goddess of the Divine Feminine, she is then beautiful radiance. The curves of the river of love and the sea of love as one. She is free from being linear. She is multidimensional within her intuitive gifts of the heart, which is the heart of Source itself. She is the flow, creative and co-creative energy, that which is the receiver of the light of the sun of the Divine Masculine and his seed, and then brings forth this life from the sun through the alchemical process of transforming energy into form. Thus, the Divine Masculine are to be in service to the Divine Feminine, or the troubadour being in service to the princess, as those archetypes. Free from being servants in the ways of being a slave, rather in the servant role of blessing the Divine Feminine in giving such a seed of creation. In blessing the Divine Feminine, he is to uplift her into her goddess by seeing her as such goddess, which then brings forth her infinite possibilities and potentials into fruition. To bring life to her, to breathe life into her. So with the breath of life he gives her, that her divine feminine flow is maximized, and the fullness of her divinity in divine feminine energy is realized. As the Divine Masculine honors, blesses, supports, uplifts, nurtures, and serves the Divine Feminine in this way, all of life is then blessed. For the Divine Masculine, this starts within his connection, union, and relating or relationship with the Divine Feminine of the earth and of the cosmos, and then within him, and then to all the Divine Feminine, as in essence, all is the Divine Feminine. When the Divine Masculine comes to the Divine Feminine, her task is to be free from rejecting him. For the greatest joy to a man is to be able to give to the Divine Feminine, and in turn, her greatest joy is to receive him and his gifts to her in honor and reverence, thereby honoring him and his divinity as he honors her and her divinity, and then utilize such an appreciation and gratitude to give birth to new creation. As the Divine Feminine steps fully into her goddess, the Divine Masculine can then see you and your light of love. And as the moth to the flame, so too will the Divine Masculine come forth, fully stepping into their role of blessing you in service. For the Divine Masculine is wired in consciousness to be in service to the Divine Feminine. For those who are in union relationship with the Divine Masculine man, please be at ease, knowing that just because the man in your life is admiring the light of love in another Divine Feminine is free from meaning that he is going to sleep with her. It simply is because he is wired in consciousness to be such, of honoring the Divine Feminine and her light of love. And when you are fully insecure or secure within, insecurity, within yourself, your soul, and also within your union relationship, you will then be fully okay knowing this. And Divine Masculine, just because you honor the Divine Feminine, it is free from meaning that you are to give way to your primal sexual urges in every moment. Rather, you are invited to savor that divine sacredness of Tantra with the one woman who truly calls to your heart in union, and yet utilize the sexual energies within you as the awakened divine masculine man of consciousness you are, and to channel it into creations of your seed in blessing the divine feminine. For neither the divine feminine nor divine masculine is to abandon such sensual and sexual urges. They are to be utilized in balance, honor, and reverence. As both the divine feminine and divine masculine dance in sacred dance of union in this way, all of humanity, earth, and the cosmos are blessed. For this is what nature does in perfect interdependent balance, and is who we are to be in creating infinite circles upon infinite circles of love. May this wisdom bless you and guide you on the path, the sacred path, sacred union, sacred love. Be love now, for this is who you are. Espavo.